Kal, Kem Ong, Aloha, Nisa Bula, On Young Aso O, and Wanakam. I tried my best. If I missed anything, I will learn it in the next commission meeting. Please. We're talking about improving family-based visa processing cycle times to reduce the backlog. Green card backlog for family-based immigrants have grown steadily for last 30 years, making lawful immigration and reunification difficult, if not impossible. For millions of families and keeping them separated for decades, US citizens and green card holders applying today to sponsor a family member abroad expect to wait decades. I'm waiting for my brother for almost 15 years now. Before their families can reunite in the United States. Nearly 4 million people are currently waiting abroad in the family-based immigration backlog, and out of this, large percentage of this belongs to our community. Many family-based immigration avenues have been significantly backlogged for decades, delaying family reunification, presenting serious barriers for individuals attempting to immigrate through authorized immigration venues. And but this, the 4 million data which is backlogged today, and 65% of family-based annual immigration makes about 65% of annual lawful immigration. So and COVID-related shutdowns, limited staffing, full or partial closures of embassies and consulates abroad had an inherited impact of Trump travel bans. All these factors contributed to increased processing times, posing difficulties to process number of green cards. If you look at the numbers, only 65,452 family preference green cards were issued in 2021 out of annual 226,000 green cards available, leaving hundreds of thousands of green cards unused and wasted, keeping many more families separated. There were 421,358 pending interviews in April compared to 436,700 in March this year. So our recommendation is to reduce agencies' pending family-based green card backlog. It is recommended USCIS should review their processes, systems, policies, and establish new internal cycle time goals for streamlining process, removing redundant steps, automating any manual approvals, improving their internal dashboards and reporting system, and enhancing policies to reduce the cycle time for processing all forms and documents related to green card application, DACA renewals, and all other green card application within 6 months, and adjudicate within 6 months a decision after the application is being received by USCIS. And this is in alignment with the USCIS new goals per the chart which you can see below. So we expect that there will be some great news for community in future where they can expect green card in 6 months from the date of application, and which will be a huge change from today's 10 to 15 years of backlog. USCIS should also review, give me 1 second, USCIS should also review request for work permits, travel documents, and temporary status extension within 3 months and adjudicate decision. Today it takes several months. USCIS developed its own implementation plan, hiring new resources and officers which are needed. I understand hiring 200 to 500 more new officers, and cost estimates, secure budget, and implement suggested internal processing times by 2023. It is recommended USCIS share the backlog for processing by using skilled officers, employees from other agencies, and share the backlog for processing by employees from other agencies by hiring temps and contractors as allowed by the law, and increase the officers' force by 200 to 250 to reduce the backlog. Also, USCIS worked in close conjunction with the State Department to issue complete the process for green card. So it is recommended that the National Visa Center State Department's facility hire additional officers to increase their capacity to process green card application interviews by 100% in 3 months from August 2022, and by increasing green card application visa interviews and adjudicate decision by 150% from current capacity of 32,439 in April 2022. By April 2023, and reduce the current backlog by 2023, and then thereafter green card interviews and visa processing timeline should be maximum of 6 months. Thank you. This was my first recommendation. Sonal, should I continue to the next one or wait for the? Okay. Okay. So the next one is new measures for reducing the current immigration backlog. The immigration backlog has surged from 5.7 million applications at the end of 2019 to about 9.5 million in February 2022, and the State Department wait for in-person consular interviews or for immigration visa rose to a high of 532,000 last July, and an average of 60,900 numbers adding on average a month. The backlog can trap individuals into limbo for months of years with enormous implications for their families. Simple, a person going for an H1 renewal or things, their driver license can be taken out or their lives are impacted. A person waiting for an EAD approval loses the job, or the families, employers, U.S. immigration system suffers with this whole backlog process. So given the delays in approving work authorization documents, many immigrants living in the United States have been locked out of or forced to leave the job and even the country and face immense hardships. So our recommendation is that reduce the wait times. It is recommended USCIS establish new internal cycle time goals to be achieved by September 2023. And some of these, as you can see in the chart, is getting 6 months, some of the application forms and premium processing to be done in 2 weeks, and in 3 months I-765. So one of our recommendation was to automatically extend the EAD card, and which have went into live by USCIS 2 weeks back. It will be automatically renewed for 540 days. So it's a great relief for the community, and thank you USCIS for doing that. Increase staff and hire more officers. Again, in the USCIS recommendation is to hire more officers, and also educate temporary work programs as H1B and H2A visa renewals, extensions within 2 months. It's recommended to request work permits, travel documents, etc. within 3 months, and then DACA renewals and green card request for family members within 6 months. Also, one of the things is that there are a lot of students who have been waiting with their parents for green card application, and they age out. They age out, and then they fall out of status. So they call themselves as DALCA, D-A-L-C-A, but that's not an accurate term. But we also want USCIS to look for them as a special case and find a way for their citizenship path. I will stop here, and back to, yes, we have one more recommendation. Diana? No, sorry.
No, Grace. Yeah, I have to do my recommendation as well.
Grace, thank you.
So the third recommendation that we had spoke to a specific issue that USCIS is currently working on. Many of you may be familiar with the public charge rule and what happened during the last administration, that it's a longstanding rule, and it speaks to whether or not somebody can be admitted to the United States. And if somebody's found that they're likely to become a public charge, that can be a basis for denial of their application to become a permanent resident or to be admitted. And so during the last administration, there was a lot of activity to try to expand the definition of public charge. And what ultimately happened was there's been a huge decline in the willingness of many of our AA and PI, as well as other communities, in being willing to access public benefits and healthcare benefits, et cetera. In any event, so our recommendation was that the federal government, primarily USCIS as well as the State Department, issue new public charge policies that support AA and PI immigrant families in accessing supports for their health and well-being as soon as possible. We recommend that in making an assessment of whether somebody is likely to become a public charge, the regulation should limit consideration to current receipt of federal cash assistance for income maintenance only. i.e. not consideration of past use of state benefits, nor federal health, housing, food assistance, or education and other benefits, and not consider long-term institutionalization at government expense. USCIS and the State Department should accept a properly executed affidavit of support from a sponsor as presumptively sufficient to overcome the public charge determination. USCIS should partner with other federal agencies, and this is what I was talking about earlier, to engage in widespread outreach and education to Asian American and Pacific Islander communities about the changes, including about which benefits would not implicate the public charge rule. And all the background and lots of materials are about this start at page 30 of the materials, and I think we have questions, we're open to questions, I think both Ajay, well, the whole committee, so. Thanks.
Thank you, Grace. Everyone, this is amazing work, and we really appreciate all of it. But my question specifically is with this crazy backlog of immigration applications. Like, were you guys able to bring in a subject matter expert to sort of talk about, what is the process? Why is it broken, and why is it? What is creating this massive backlog?
We did bring in subject matter expert from USCIS, and please chime in. But so the couple of things in last 2-3 years, COVID-related issues with the staffing, and a lot of had a reduction. A lot of policies which the last administration did, we are this administration in the process of undoing and getting through those, and all those have and reduced and all those have added to the backlog. There is also the way the current processes are and the systems are, so that combines. So that is why we have recommended that review your policies, your systems, your processes, remove redundant approval steps, automate your manual steps to workflows, and all those things which will streamline this process and increase this. In addition to that, hire approximately 200 to 500 more officers. In the current budget, which I understand the agency has a increased budget to hire more officers, so that's where we're looking at.
Thank you.
I thought I just wanted to jump in. Yeah. I think both Ajay. Hello. Both Ajay and Grace had mentioned it earlier. I think it's an accumulation of a lot of cases from the last administration that create a lot of backlog. That's number one. Number two, automation is not there, and also the lack of manpower. These are the three key areas. That is from our finding. If this thing had, will not take immediate action, it will be continue to kind of like a change effect going forward. Thank you.
I did want to flag that we did get a request from USCIS that they are actively hiring. So for outreach purposes, we'll pass along that request for them.
Thanks so much for all of your work on these recommendations. They're really, really important. I appreciate it. I was wondering if you all had at all considered adding to the recommendation about CIS's backlog, specifically about the CARP program. I'm not sure if folks are familiar with this program. It's a loophole in the normal adjudication process for green cards and for becoming a U.S. citizen. It's called the Controlled Application Review and Resolution Program, and it's essentially an extreme vetting program that's causing tremendous delays from people throughout the world, particularly targeting Muslim majority countries, but there are top 5 countries that are targeted. 2 of them are India and Pakistan. And some people have been waiting for years to get their green cards or to become citizens because of this program. So I was wondering if you'd consider adding something about this program to your recommendation around the internal processing times, because this was started, unfortunately, during the Obama administration in 2008 and has not been fixed yet. Thanks so much.
No, absolutely. I mean, the overall language covers all programs, but we'll be more than happy to add this, the item which you mentioned and update it. So.
I might suggest that just so we can vote on it, maybe after this is over, that you guys just figure out the language that goes in there so we can vote on it at the end.
We'll do that.
That's great.
Sure.
Kimberly.
Thanks so much. I learned so much from reading your recommendations. Very, very comprehensive and really well done. And I appreciate all three of them. I just had a question on the family separation, the family reunification. And this might be a question to work with a data disaggregation committee, or I don't know where you are. Anyway, because I wonder if we have data comparing the family reunification rates from different countries or the backlogs, reading about the 22-year backlog for some countries and 15-year backlogs. And really, is this a discrimination to our Asian American brothers and sisters, community members who cannot reunite with their family members? And is that some sort of, do we know how many of our community members are not being able to be reunited because of this? And is it like is there something systematic that we can do about it?
So we did look at the numbers of by each country and things, and the large percentage of the backlog is for Asian API communities or our community. But I would not comment that there is a systematic discrimination or thing. I would say that the USCIS needs to review the processes, systems, and they're hiring more officers to reduce the backlogs.
Okay, but I mean comparing to other continents and things, and making sure that it's not. Like, why is it just on our communities?
I can respond to that. I mean, part of the problem is that it's a legislative issue because there are, per country caps on the number of people that are admitted. And so to the extent that we have, we have long backlogs, especially for China, India, and the Philippines, exactly. It has to do with the per country number of visas. And so, I mean, I think that we haven't spent the time yet to talk about recommended legislative changes, and there are many, and they have been longstanding, and people have been working on many of them for decades. And so, I mean, I think that there's the opportunity to do that.
And to add to that, we have another recommendation in our long-term recommendation, which will be coming in one of the next meeting, is the removing the country cap limit and merge everybody together, and that is what your point will be addressed then. But that recommendation will be bringing maybe in our next few commissions.
Thank you. Victoria?
Yeah.
Thank you to the subcommittee, the Immigration Citizens Subcommittee, for the very thorough recommendations. And I'm speaking, I guess, for the legal clinics, the DOJ-accredited organizations, and refugee-serving immigration services groups, and also would like to recommend that, there should be conversations about resources for community engagement as we change some of the structural pieces and add staff. There could be a lot of, challenges for the families and the communities that are kind of, walking through the gates, right? And making sure that the grants that, the USCIS offers allows for nonprofits and organizations and providers to be able to provide support hand in hand with USCIS. And also to make sure that we provide spaces for the stories of these communities through these USCIS grants. So I just wanted to uplift that and make sure that the recommendation is also part of these recommendations.
Thank you. And so with respect to the public charge rule, we did start that on, if you look at page 33, as to like some of that modeling, but I think we can certainly get more specific, and I know that we're working on, for the next round, more recommendations, Simon, on outreach and how we do that work. Thanks.
Smita?
Thank you. I just wanted clarification on the backlog question. I believe it's the backlog. You had mentioned 6 months is the recommended time. But I just wanted to confirm, so what happens if the 6 month isn't achieved? Is it going to be an automatic rejection, an automatic approval, or is it just going to roll over? Because that would be my concern on.
I mean,
great question.
that's the recommended time for the best practice that you have it done in 6 months. There might be cases which requires more background check or more thorough things, and that will be up to the USCIS to get it done. But the idea would be that they try to achieve 100% within 6 months, but there might be, when they're processing might be a certain percentage which are not done in 6 months, but they would continue to complete it. So.
Yeah, just
So
as you,
I think I just want to say here, I think Smita's point is unintended consequences might be greater than the intended achievement of wanting to get to the 6 months. And so Ajay, I think I would just maybe recommend that the subcommittee in this recommendation think about taking out the time limit so it doesn't automatically reject people if the 6 months isn't achieved, because if that is an unintended consequence, it may cause more problems. So for you all to think about, I don't have a recommendation. I would just say I think it's worth thinking about whether the unintended consequence of a time limit may push to get to 100% and to meet the objective, you might actually reject applicants to get to 100%. Does that make sense of what she's saying?
Yeah.
So think about it. I think it's a goal to get to, but I just be careful about the time limit being too short, and that if they don't have the capacity.
And these are more in alignment with what USCIS is looking at their internal time cycles. So.
Yeah.
I would just add, Sonal, too, I think all of these things, I think it's the unintended consequences and just thinking about, what is the, how do you give it teeth or not give it teeth in the way you're proposing it, sort of as your next step.
Yeah, so it might be useful if in between, if during a break you all can figure out some language that can help achieve that, so when we vote, we can get to
absolutely.
that.
And I just want to add one more comment, Sonal, that while we are working on this recommendation, in our pipeline is a recommendation on H-1B visa, which is basically to get this, today if you have to get stamping on your visa, for H-1B visa, you have to go to your own country to get the stamping done. But our pipeline is that we want the stamping to be done in the US only, so that right now, if your parent is suffering from COVID, is in ICU, and you only have left 30 days of stamping, you don't want to go to the country because you will have to wait for 8 to 9 months to get a appointment at the State Department, at the embassy. So our recommendation, which we will be working in future, is to get the stamping done in US only. I wanted to bring it up so that we can collaborate in future.
Great, thank you. Mia?